Let me begin with a question most men over 50 are quietly asking. Why does sexual performance decline, even when desire is still there? And why are so many men being told that rubbing a particular oil on a specific spot can restore what feels like lost vitality? Here's what's really going on inside your body. An erection is not primarily a sexual issue. It is a vascular event driven by nitric oxide, endothelial health, testosterone balance, insulin sensitivity, and nervous system regulation. When erections weaken, it is rarely a penis problem. It is almost always a metabolic signal. Now, you may have heard claims that applying castor oil to certain areas, often the lower abdomen, liver area, or groin, can improve erectile strength. Castor oil does contain ricinoleic acid, which has mild anti-inflammatory properties and may increase local circulation when used in massage. But here's the critical distinction. There is currently no high-quality clinical evidence showing that topical castor oil directly improves erectile function. So why do some men report feeling better? Because massage, relaxation, improved parasympathetic tone, and reduced stress hormones can temporarily improve blood flow. Not because the oil itself is reversing vascular aging. And this is where we need to zoom out. After age 50, 3 systems begin to shift. Endothelial function declines, insulin resistance increases, testosterone gradually decreases. If the arteries supplying the penis cannot dilate properly, erections weaken. And penile arteries are small, about 1 to 2 manometers in diameter, meaning they show vascular dysfunction earlier than coronary arteries. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your blood vessels as flexible garden hoses. When insulin is chronically elevated, inflammation rises, and nitric oxide production falls, those hoses stiffen. Blood pressure may still be normal, but dilation capacity is reduced. An erection requires rapid, elastic expansion of those vessels. So instead of asking, where should I rub oil? The more intelligent question is, how do I restore endothelial flexibility, optimize testosterone signaling, and reduce inflammatory load? That is what we are going to unpack today. We will explore the true vascular mechanism behind erections, the liver hormone connection most men ignore, why insulin is silently sabotaging blood flow, the role of cortisol and sleep, evidence-based natural strategies that outperform folklore, because the goal is not a temporary boost. The goal is restoring metabolic youth, and by the end of this discussion, you will understand something powerful. Stronger erections are not about a trick. They are about systemic repair. An erection is not driven by desire alone. It is driven by vascular physics. Here's what's really going on inside your body. When you become aroused, nerves release nitric oxide, a signaling molecule that tells the smooth muscle inside penile arteries to relax. When those muscles relax, blood rushes in, the chambers fill, pressure builds, veins compress, rigidity occurs, no nitric oxide, no arterial flexibility, no erection. Now here's the critical insight most men over 50 are never told. The penile arteries are about 1/3 the diameter of coronary arteries. That means if there is early endothelial dysfunction, the stiffening and inflammation of the artery lining, the penis will show symptoms before the heart does. In cardiology, erectile dysfunction is often described as an early warning sign of cardiovascular disease. The same vascular impairment that reduces erection quality also predicts heart attack risk. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your blood vessels as elastic rubber tubing. In your 20s and 30s, that tubing expands easily. By 50, if insulin has been high for decades, if inflammation is elevated, if oxidative stress has accumulated, that tubing becomes stiff and less responsive. An erection requires rapid expansion under pressure. If elasticity declines even slightly, performance drops dramatically. This is why chasing testosterone alone often fails. Testosterone can increase desire, but nitric oxide determines performance. What the research shows is that endothelial dysfunction, driven by metabolic syndrome, high fasting insulin, visceral fat, and chronic inflammation, directly reduces nitric oxide production. Reduced nitric oxide means weaker dilation capacity. And here's the key root cause shift. Erectile quality is a vascular health score, not a masculinity score. Now, where does something like castor oil enter this conversation? Castor oil contains ricinoleic acid, which has mild anti-inflammatory effects. Massage, especially in the lower abdominal or pelvic region, can temporarily increase local circulation and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That may create a subjective improvement. But understand the mechanism. It is the massage, relaxation, and nervous system shift, not a biochemical penetration reversing endothelial aging. And this is why focusing on systemic vascular repair matters more than topical application. So what improves endothelial function? Lowering fasting insulin, reducing visceral fat, increasing nitric oxide precursors, improving mitochondrial efficiency, sleeping deeply. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day, focused on repairing physiology at the root, not masking symptoms. Because the intelligent strategy is not asking, what can I apply externally? It's asking, how do I restore the elasticity of my vascular system? Here's what's really going on inside your body when insulin resistance starts to affect erections, and why it isn't a superficial blood flow issue, but a root metabolic dysfunction. At its core, insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone. It's also a vascular signaling hormone, one that stimulates nitric oxide synthesis in endothelial cells, the very cells that line your blood vessels. Nitric oxide is the chemical messenger that tells smooth muscle to relax, so arteries dilate, a process that underlies every erection. But in insulin resistance, the state where cells no longer respond efficiently to insulin, this signaling pathway breaks down. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine a traffic cop, insulin, directing cars, blood flow signals to open lanes, nitric oxide-mediated dilation. When the cop is sharp and responsive, traffic flows smoothly. But if the cop becomes ineffective, confused, or ignored, the highway bottlenecks. Blood doesn't flow where it needs to go. That traffic jam is what happens inside small penile arteries long before overt diabetes develops. What the research shows is this. Insulin resistance reduces the activation of endothelial nitric oxide synthase, ENOS, the enzyme that makes nitric oxide in arterial walls. Low ENOS means less dilation capacity for penile arteries. This reduction in nitric oxide isn't just theoretical. Large population studies show men with higher markers of IR are more likely to have erectile dysfunction, independent of diabetes. Insulin resistance also increases oxidative stress and inflammation, which further injure the endothelium and blunt nitric oxide-mediated dilation. This is why ED can be an early indicator of metabolic syndrome, sometimes even before blood glucose or lipids reach diagnostic thresholds for diabetes. Here's another key point most people miss. It's not just about sugar, it's about vascular insulin signaling. Insulin resistance alters the interaction between insulin and the PI3K ACT pathway in endothelial cells, the very signaling cascade that turns on eNOS and nitric oxide production. When this pathway is impaired, arteries fail to relax properly, even if blood sugar numbers aren't terrible. So when we talk about strengthening erections, the question isn't, can castor oil magically restore blood flow? The smarter question is, how do we fix the metabolic signals that allow your blood vessels to relax, dilate, and respond to nitric oxide again? That changes everything, and the good news is, insulin sensitivity is one of the most modifiable aspects of aging metabolism. If this section is adding real value, subscribe, because we're moving into practical, behavior-based interventions next. Here is the powerful truth most men never hear. You do not treat erectile dysfunction. You reverse the metabolic environment that caused it. If insulin resistance is impairing nitric oxide signaling, stiffening arteries, and reducing endothelial responsiveness, then the goal is restoring insulin sensitivity. Let me walk you through this like we're at a whiteboard. When you eat refined carbohydrates frequently, bread, sugar, processed snacks, insulin rises repeatedly throughout the day. Over years, cells become less responsive. The pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. Chronically elevated insulin does three critical things. It suppresses nitric oxide production, it promotes visceral fat storage, it increases inflammation and oxidative stress. All three directly impair erection quality. So what reverses this? First, lower insulin exposure. One of the most powerful tools is time-restricted eating. When you compress food intake into an 8-10 hour window, insulin has time to fall. During the fasting window, your body shifts toward fat oxidation, inflammation decreases, and endothelial function improves. You do not need extreme fasting. Start with finish dinner by 7 p.m., delay breakfast until 9 or 10 a.m., avoid late-night snacking. Second, prioritize protein and fiber over refined carbohydrates. Each meal should contain 30-40 grams of protein, non-starchy vegetables, healthy fats. Reduce ultra-processed carbs, not eliminate, reduce. Third, resistance training. Muscle is a glucose disposal organ. When you lift weights, you increase GLUT4 translocation, meaning muscle absorbs glucose without needing as much insulin. This directly improves insulin sensitivity within days. 3 sessions per week is sufficient. Fourth, sleep. Poor sleep raises cortisol. Elevated cortisol increases insulin resistance the next day. Even one night of short sleep reduces insulin sensitivity measurably. Target 7 to 8 hours. Dark room, cool temperature, no screens, 60 minutes before bed. Now let me connect this back to erections. When insulin sensitivity improves, ENOS activity improves, nitric oxide production increases, arteries regain flexibility, inflammation declines. Erections become stronger not because you stimulated them, but because you restored vascular competence. This is root cause physiology. Now, where might something like castor oil packs play a minor role? Primarily in stress reduction. Applying a warm compress over the abdomen in a relaxed state activates parasympathetic tone. That shift alone can improve vascular response temporarily, but understand this clearly. Castor oil is not repairing insulin resistance. Your behavior is. If this is resonating, consider subscribing, because we are not chasing hacks here. We are rebuilding metabolic youth. Excellent. Now we move into one of the most underestimated systems in male sexual health, the liver. Because here's what's really going on inside your body after 50. And almost no one explains it this way. Testosterone production does decline gradually with age. That's true. But in many men, the larger issue is not total testosterone, it's bioavailability, and the liver plays a central role in that equation. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of testosterone like cash. Total testosterone is the amount of money in your bank account, but free testosterone, the biologically active form, is the cash in your wallet. You can have money in the bank, but if you can't access it, it doesn't help you. The liver determines how much testosterone remains available versus how much gets bound, converted, or cleared. Here's how. First, the liver produces sex hormone binding globulin, SHBG, the protein that binds testosterone. When SHBG rises too high, free testosterone falls. Second, the liver is responsible for clearing excess estrogen. As men accumulate visceral fat and insulin resistance increases, aromatase activity rises, converting more testosterone into estradiol. If the liver cannot efficiently metabolize that estrogen load, hormonal balance shifts. The result? Lower free testosterone, higher estrogen relative to testosterone, reduced libido and erectile resilience. Now let's connect the metabolic dots. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, now often called metabolic dysfunction-associated steatotic liver disease, is extremely common in men over 50. Even mild liver fat accumulation impairs hepatic insulin signaling and hormone metabolism. And what drives fatty liver? Chronic high insulin, excess fructose intake, visceral fat, sedentary behavior. Notice the pattern? The same metabolic forces impairing nitric oxide production are also impairing liver hormone regulation. Now here's where castor oil historically enters the conversation. In traditional naturopathic practices, castor oil packs are often applied over the right upper abdomen, the anatomical location of the liver, with the idea that they support detoxification or circulation. However, modern clinical research does not demonstrate that topical castor oil enhances liver enzyme function or hormone metabolism. What it may do is promote relaxation. Warmth increases local circulation superficially. Parasympathetic activation improves digestive motility, but it does not reverse fatty liver or rebalance SHBG levels. So what does? Let's get practical. First, reduce liver fat. Studies consistently show that losing even 5 to 10% of body weight significantly reduces hepatic fat and improves insulin sensitivity. Second, eliminate liquid fructose. Sugary beverages and excessive fruit juice drive de novo lipogenesis in the liver. Remove them entirely. Third, increase choline intake. Eggs are one of the richest sources of choline, a nutrient essential for exporting fat out of the liver via VLDL particles. Many men underconsume choline. 2 to 3 whole eggs daily can be metabolically supportive unless contraindicated. Fourth, increase cruciferous vegetables. Broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts support phase 1 and 2 liver detox pathways involved in estrogen metabolism. Fifth, resistance training again. Improving muscle insulin sensitivity reduces liver fat indirectly. This is why erections are a systemic marker. When the liver functions efficiently, SHBG normalizes, estrogen clearance improves, free testosterone rises, insulin signaling improves, nitric oxide signaling improves, sexual performance strengthens because metabolic health improves. If this section is expanding your understanding, subscribe, because next we are going to discuss a factor even more immediate than insulin or liver function, cortisol, and why chronic stress can override every other improvement if left unaddressed. This is where the nervous system becomes the final gatekeeper of erectile performance. Now we move into a mechanism that overrides everything we've discussed so far if it's not addressed. Cortisol. Because here's something most men don't realize. You can have decent testosterone, you can improve insulin sensitivity, you can clean up your diet, but if your nervous system is stuck in sympathetic dominance, fight or flight mode, erections will remain unreliable. Here's what's really going on inside your body. An erection requires activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, sometimes called the rest and digest system. It's the same branch responsible for digestion, recovery, and repair. Sexual arousal begins in the brain, yes, but the signal must travel through parasympathetic pathways to release nitric oxide in penile tissue. Now imagine this. You're under chronic stress, financial pressure, poor sleep, high caffeine intake, constant digital stimulation. Cortisol levels remain elevated. Cortisol shifts your body into survival mode. Blood is redirected to large muscle groups. Digestion slows. Reproductive function is deprioritized. Because from an evolutionary perspective, survival overrides reproduction. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your nervous system like a light switch. Sympathetic mode, performance, alertness, threat response. Parasympathetic mode, relaxation, bonding, erection. You cannot have both fully activated at the same time. If cortisol is chronically elevated, nitric oxide signaling is blunted. Blood vessel dilation becomes less responsive. Even with adequate testosterone, the signal-to-response chain weakens. What the research consistently shows is that chronic psychological stress correlates strongly with erectile dysfunction, independent of age and cardiovascular disease. And here's the part many men underestimate. Sleep deprivation elevates next-day cortisol and reduces testosterone production simultaneously. 1 week of sleeping 5 hours per night has been shown to reduce daytime testosterone levels in healthy men. So now we connect everything. Poor sleep, elevated cortisol, increased insulin resistance, reduced nitric oxide, impaired erection. This is a cascade. Now let's get practical. First, protect sleep aggressively. 7 to 8 hours minimum, no screens, 60 minutes before bed. Bedroom temperature, 65 to 68 degrees, 18 to 20 degrees. Morning sunlight exposure within 30 minutes of waking. Second, reduce stimulants. High caffeine intake late in the day prolongs sympathetic activation. Stop caffeine after 1-2 p.m. Third, parasympathetic training. Simple breath work can shift autonomic tone. Try this protocol nightly. Inhale 4 seconds, exhale 6 to 8 seconds. Repeat for 5 minutes longer. Exhalation stimulates vagal tone. Fourth, resistance training, but not overtraining. Excessive high-intensity training can elevate cortisol chronically. Balance strength training with recovery. Now here's where castor oil packs may offer minor indirect support. The ritual itself, warm compress, quiet time, reduced light, encourages parasympathetic activation. That relaxation response may transiently improve erectile quality. But again, the mechanism is nervous system regulation, not oil chemistry. The intelligent strategy is not asking, what topical solution can override stress? It's asking, how do I lower baseline cortisol and restore autonomic balance? Because erections are a nervous system event just as much as a vascular one. Now we arrive at the cellular level, the level most people never explore. Because here's what's really going on inside your body after 50. Erections are not just vascular, they are mitochondrial. Let me explain. Every time nitric oxide signals an artery to relax, that signal depends on energy, cellular energy in the endothelial cells lining your blood vessels. That energy comes from mitochondria. Mitochondria are the power plants inside your cells. They generate ATP, regulate oxidative stress, and modulate nitric oxide signaling pathways. With aging, mitochondrial efficiency declines. And when mitochondria underperform, 3 things happen. Reactive oxygen species increase. Nitric oxide gets degraded more rapidly. Endothelial responsiveness weakens. The result? Even if nitric oxide is produced, it doesn't last long enough to sustain dilation. Let me give you a simple visual. Imagine nitric oxide as a message written in ink. Oxidative stress is water spilling onto the page. If there's too much oxidative stress, the message blurs before it reaches its target. That's what happens inside aging arteries. Now here's what accelerates mitochondrial decline. Sedentary lifestyle, chronic high insulin, nutrient deficiencies, poor sleep, excess alcohol. And here's what improves mitochondrial efficiency, and by extension, erectile performance. First, Zone 2, cardio. Moderate intensity, steady state training improves mitochondrial density. You should be slightly breathless but able to hold a conversation. Aim for 30-45 minutes, 3-4 times per week. Second, resistance training again. It increases mitochondrial biogenesis in skeletal muscle and improves systemic insulin sensitivity. Third, nitric oxide supportive nutrition. Beetroot, arugula, spinach, rich in dietary nitrates, can increase nitric oxide availability through the nitrate-nitrite pathway. Even something as simple as a daily arugula salad can meaningfully support nitric oxide levels. Fourth, L-citrulline or L-arginine supplementation. These are nitric oxide precursors. L-citrulline is often better absorbed and can increase plasma arginine levels more effectively. Typical dosing, 3 to 6 grams daily of L-citrulline. Fifth, magnesium. Magnesium supports endothelial function and smooth muscle relaxation. Many men are mildly deficient. Sixth, sunlight and vitamin D. Low vitamin D correlates with endothelial dysfunction and lower testosterone levels. Test your levels. Aim for optimal, not just normal. Now connect this back to aging. When you improve mitochondrial health, oxidative stress decreases, nitric oxide persists longer, arterial dilation improves, energy levels increase, recovery improves, and erections strengthen because cellular signaling becomes more efficient. This is systemic rejuvenation, not symptom management. If this is expanding how you think about performance and longevity, subscribe, because we focus on biology, not quick fixes. Excellent. Now we bring everything together into a structured, practical protocol, because clarity without implementation is useless. If a man over 50 wants stronger erections naturally, the goal is not stimulation. The goal is vascular restoration, hormonal balance, mitochondrial efficiency, and nervous system regulation. So here is the daily blueprint. Morning wake and get sunlight within 20-30 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes outdoors anchors circadian rhythm, lowers cortisol later in the day, and supports testosterone production. Hydrate. Black coffee is fine, but keep it moderate. If fasting feels sustainable, delay breakfast until 9 to 10 a.m. to allow insulin to remain low longer. Midday nutrition structure meals around protein first. 30-40 grams per meal. Eggs, fish, grass-fed beef, chicken, Greek yogurt. Add cruciferous vegetables for liver support. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. Include nitrate-rich greens, arugula, spinach, beetroot. Keep refined carbohydrates low. Focus on whole food sources if included. Remove sugary drinks completely. Training protocol. 3 days per week, resistance training, compound lifts, moderate intensity. 3 to 4 days per week, Zone 2 cardio, 30-45 minutes. This combination improves insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial density, and endothelial function. Supplement support, if appropriate. L-citrulline, 3 to 6 grams daily. Magnesium glycinate, 200-400 milligrams in the evening. Vitamin D if deficient. Omega-3 fatty acids for endothelial health. Evening routine. Stop caffeine after early afternoon. Finish eating at least 3 hours before bed. Dim lights 1 hour before sleep. Breathing protocol. Inhale, 4 seconds. Exhale, 6 to 8 seconds. 5 minutes. This shifts you into parasympathetic dominance, the neurological state required for erection. Optional relaxation. Ritual. If you choose to use a warm compress or castor oil pack over the abdomen, understand its role. It is a relaxation tool. It may help reduce stress and encourage parasympathetic tone. It is not repairing arteries directly. The real repair is happening through metabolic intervention. Now notice the pattern. Every tool we discussed improves. Insulin sensitivity, liver function, nitric oxide production, mitochondrial efficiency, cortisol regulation. When those improve, erectile function improves as a side effect of systemic health. This is the difference between chasing performance and restoring physiology. Now let's conclude by reinforcing what truly matters here. Here's what we've uncovered together. Erections after 50 are not about magic spots or quick topical fixes. They are a window into your metabolic, vascular, and hormonal health. We broke down 6 critical insights. Erections are a vascular event dependent on nitric oxide and arterial elasticity. Insulin resistance silently reduces nitric oxide and stiffens arteries. Liver function governs hormone balance, free testosterone, and estrogen clearance. Cortisol and stress dictate whether your nervous system allows erections to occur at all. Mitochondrial health underpins cellular energy and nitric oxide signaling. Evidence-based interventions, diet, exercise, sleep, and targeted supplements restore systemic function. Here's the key takeaway. Stronger erections are not about rubbing a particular oil on your body. They are about repairing the body at its core, your metabolism, hormones, nervous system, and mitochondria. When you restore systemic health, sexual performance improves naturally as a byproduct of being younger at the cellular and vascular level. Let me offer a simple, actionable challenge. Pick just one of these changes today, whether it's finishing dinner earlier, taking a 20-minute sunlight walk in the morning, adding resistance training, or implementing a nightly 5-minute breathwork routine, and track how your body responds. Observe your energy, mood, and performance over the next week. That single change starts the momentum toward systemic repair. Remember, every systemic improvement compounds. Better sleep improves insulin sensitivity. Improved insulin improves vascular flexibility. Improved vascular flexibility improves nitric oxide signaling. And nitric oxide signaling is what allows strong, natural erections. This is the difference between chasing a gimmick and restoring true physiological youth.